Fish on. Well, good morning and welcome back. Today I am on the Little Red River up here near Heber Springs, Arkansas. I actually launched my boat at Lobo Landing, if you're curious. Lobo Landing is a pretty good boat launch for anybody that just has a regular John boat, regular fishing boat, even a bass boat. You can launch here and run your regular outboard right here and not worry about messing up your motor and hitting your prop. But the fish are really struggling to bite. I've thrown multiple style rapalas, rooster tails, all kind of little jerk baits and stuff, and I cannot get a commitment from a fish to bite it. So I'm going to what I call cheating, which is Powerbait. I'm not sure how well that's picking up there, but I'm using Powerbait. And I'm going to show you guys like the fail-safe way. If you come to the Little Red River and you want to catch trout, this is like the easiest way to do it. I always get the rainbow colored Powerbait first off. And I prefer to get one that has more orange in it than anything. And this one's got mostly green. I wish I had bought a separate orange one to mix in here, but I did not. I'm hoping once I get down in the bottom, it'll have a little bit more orange in it. But as of right now, it looks like mostly green. And that is one of my least favorite colors with Powerbait. But anyways, I'm going to show you my setup rig, which is very simple. I bought these size 8 octopus hooks by Fusion. This is a Berkeley hook. Just because that's what they had at the store. Basically, you want a really tiny hook for a trout. And I'm taking out some of this. I'm going to show you this up close, but I'm going to put this Powerbait on this hook and try my best to cover the hook completely. You want to cover your knot, you want to cover the hook, you want to cover the whole thing to basically hide your line, hide your knot, hide your hook from the fish. So I kind of make a little bit of a teardrop. And the teardrop shape, if you do it perfect, helps keep your line from getting spun up in the water too, because this is going in the current, and if you have it kind of smushed on there funny, it catches current and it just spins. This will spin too, but see, basically I do a teardrop like that, and then I'll have a leader, and then I'll just have one split shot. And in this case, I'm doing, I'd say that's over 4 feet a leader, which is long, but I'm in some really deep water. And so that doesn't mean I'm going to be fishing 4 foot off the bottom. This stuff is buoyant and it floats up, but it's also getting hit by current. So if my weight sinks to the bottom, this 4 foot of line is just going to be out to the side. It's not going to be vertical. And so when I'm in really deep water, especially with a lot of grass, I like to give a long leader. So I trolled over this spot and I saw a couple of trout swimming right here. I'm sure there've been trout everywhere, but I know there's 3 or 4 right out there. So I'm just going to sit right here, cast that out, set my pole down. I'm going to chill out. You can only keep 5 anyway. So I'm going to sit here until this pole's got a fish. We'll just wait and watch. I will say this, there's a lot of current right here, and it's sucking my line that way really fast. And so you want to up your weight. If the current's too strong, you want to put more weight on it to where it doesn't just take it off. Look, there's a fish already getting it that quick. I mean, I just put it in the water. I don't know if he still got it or not. Something's definitely taking it. Got him. Look, I got a fish, and I've had this Powerbait in the water for 2 minutes. Not even that. Less than 1 minute, really. And I've already got a trout. So, look, I just threw this thing out there, and I've already got a rainbow. So, I'm telling you guys, this is the best way. If you get here and you're struggling to catch fish, just throw Powerbait on there. I'm going to get this guy unhooked, throw him on some ice. I'm going to keep my 5 fish limit today and go home and cook them. You can see I've got a pretty small split shot on here. And if there's currents too much, I'll put 2 or 3 of them on there. And then I've got about a 4-foot leader. And then you could see if I can get that hook where you can actually see it. That is a super tiny hook, guys, but this is the size hook you gotta have for trout. And don't do a long shank hook because they see it. You want the short one like this. All right, then you want to fix it on your line like a teardrop, like that, barely covering the hook. You don't want some monstrous glob on there. You barely want it covering the hook. The bigger the bait, the harder it is to hook the fish because they got to get through all that gunk to get to the hook that's inside. But you want to cover your knot, the eye of the hook, and everything because this water is really clear and these trout have really good eyesight and they're bad to get spooked. So put it like that. You will catch fish on bigger globs and you can catch fish on some that aren't perfect, but you know, if you take the little bit of extra time, you'll get more fish. All right. And I'm just throwing it out there like this. I'm letting a little bit of slack in my line, and then I'm just going to set my pole down and let the current do its thing. But you'll see my line's getting tight. Current's catching it. I'm going to watch the rod tip. It's going to probably hit some grass and hit some rocks, but if a fish grabs it, your rod will jerk a whole bunch of times real quick. But if it's just doing this slow pull like this, that's just your weight catching on grass and rocks and stuff, and it's just the current's pulling it and letting it go. Like the weight's catching on something, and then it's got enough current to pop it over the grass or something. But that's actually good because that's how the trout feed, is they're used to food just drifting in the water past them. And so if your bait's drifting in the water, that's actually a good thing. As long as it doesn't get all the way back over here against the bank. You want it to stay where the fish are. And I saw a handful of fish right out in there. So I'm only going to let it sit in this spot for about maybe 5, most 10 minutes. And then I'm going to throw it back out and let it go back in there. You don't want to just leave this in that spot for 30 minutes. Never do that with this kind of setup because you never know, your bait might be, I'm not sure how well the camera can pick it up. Let me just see. I've got my polarized lenses. You see that grass down there? If you happen to get your bait stuck in that grass, it'll sit there for 30 minutes with no chance of catching a fish. So you don't want to just leave it sitting in the same spot for 30 minutes. You know, about 5 minutes sitting right here is good, and then cast it back out up here and let it drift back down again. All right, so this one has been sitting there long enough. I'm gonna reel this up. I reel it in slow so it saves my bait. I don't want to crank it in, it'll rip my bait off because this stuff is super soft. So my bait is still good. And I'm gonna throw it right out there. I'm gonna reel it in a little bit too when you get around to some grass patches. And then I'm gonna let it set. And then I'm gonna watch the tip of my rod. I'm not gonna watch my line, I'm gonna watch the tip of my rod and look at the differences in the hops. Remember, if it's hitting the bottom, it's just gonna pull, let go, pull, let go. If it's a fish, it's gonna be boom, 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 boom. Kind of like that. That looked like a fish. That looked exactly like a fish. Now that looks like it's hung on something, like the weight caught grass or something. Whatever fish bit it right there did not hold it, but it looked like one bit it as it went through. So he could technically still have it and just be sitting there with it. It just caught loose. It just took off from, see, that's a fish. See the difference in the hops? Got him. You see that? I hope you guys can see the difference in the way the pole jerks. But you can see this fish right here. See him swimming in the water right there? That's it. That's how it's done. Beautiful fish. It's gonna feed me tonight. So one thing I try to do is I don't want to cast to the same spot in the river every time. I've casted to this one spot a couple of times, so the next time I'm going to throw a little bit further and over there. So your bait's going out and it's swinging out downstream and then back into the boat is what it's doing. So you're covering the same arc. And so you want to go a little bit that way and a little bit further and a little bit this way and a little bit further. And then that way it changes your arc, so you cover a little bit different ground every time. But I'm going to reel this one in. And so I can tell there's a grass patch over there, and that's the one I've been throwing on this side of it. So this time I'm going to throw further, but this way, and I'm going to cover a little bit different arc. That way I'm just hitting different water, different fish. Look, there's a fish, he's got it. I should have jerked right there, but I didn't. Oh man, I jerked. I missed him. I usually let them go until they got it, and I did not. So I messed that one up jerking too soon. So that fish, I messed that up by jerking too soon. The fish didn't have it all the way. I could tell he was biting it, and I got just anxious, I guess, and went ahead, and more times than not, if you're gonna mess up, it's because you jerk too soon with power bait. Just let the fish have it. So just watch how many times this trout comes and grabs this bait, spits it out, grabs the bait, spit it out. This is typical of what trout do if you've ever watched them eat. So the trout's got it in his mouth. He's going to go right out of frame and spit it. Then he got it again, and he's going to spit it. Now he's got it again, and he spit it. And he's got it again, and he spit it. There he comes back again. And I ended up missing that fish. But you saw he was trying to get it over and over again. And then sometimes they spook. They're really spooky. Like this fish saw the bait from way off, gets right up there by it, says, nope, I ain't having that. Oh yeah, so I threw it out there. I'm gonna let out about 10, 15 foot of line and hit the same spot. And I'm gonna hit that same fish again. I know I am. So just watch when it gets there by him. All right, I'm right in there about where he was. Oop, I don't know if that was a fish or the bottom. I can't tell. The current is moving it a lot, if that's the current. That's a fish. He's got it. So I'm going to let him go with it this time and have it. Where I jerked too soon earlier, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let him take it. So for whatever reason, this fish is being very finicky with it. He's not just eating it, he's just biting at it. But my line is still moving. So I think he's actually got it and he's swimming with it, but I can't tell. There was definitely a fish right there though. Yeah, he's on it. See it running? He's not acting like he's like hooked. He's acting like he's playing with it, and trout are really bad to play with your bait and not actually eat it. Yep, that's him. He's got it. I got him. He's just not very big. Or he doesn't seem very big. See him right there? He's not bad. He was just swimming right at me. He will do. This is a stalker rainbow straight out of the hatchery. So it took me 3 casts to get this guy, but I got him on there. It's just persistence. Okay, so I'm going to move to the back of the boat because that one I was throwing there and I let it basically drift back to there, but there were more fish popping back there and there's a big open pocket back there. So I'm going to come to the back of the boat and I'm going to throw it at that spot and leave some slack. Ultimately, the goal is to hit new territory every time. And so I'm seeing it sink right in that pocket. That's good. And I'm going to give it some slack. Again, so the current will take it further downstream instead of closer to the bank. Yeah, that looked like a fish. Look, yeah, he's got it. Got him. Fish on. Beautiful rainbow. That's dinner. Okay, I tell you what, we're gonna have to get another spot because I think I've caught all the ones in this little spot that want to bite. All right, I want to tie off to those dead trees in the water. But on my way down there, I'm gonna throw out like this and try and let the current do its thing and see if I can't get a bite on the way down. Oh, I got a fish right there. Got him. I got my 5th fish right there. Just trolling. I'm technically not trolling, the current's just pushing me down. And I just let it kind of drift with the boat. And I actually caught the biggest fish that I've got so far. Not that there's a whole lot of difference between them. That is definitely the biggest one thus far. So that's fish number 5. He's missing a fin right there. He is going on the grill tonight. All right, guys, I got a 5 trout limit. Fixing to drop this ice on them and head to the house. If you have a John boat or a fishing boat with an outboard with a prop on it, I would recommend using Lobo. Lobo is where I launched. You get to fish this stretch of river right here. The water is plenty deep enough for a regular outboard to run. And you've got about 2 miles worth of river going downstream from the ramp to fish before you hit a shoal. If you need the rules, you can kind of pause the video right here. But it's got a really nice ramp, a large parking lot. I've never seen the parking lot full. But you can see you can launch just about any boat you want right here. And of course, if you want to do some bank fishing, there's nowhere that's going to be more beautiful than JFK campgrounds. This is JFK. It is beautiful. Just know that if you're there on the weekends, you're going to be sharing the bank with quite a lot of people. This is a very touristy area for good reason. And before you leave, make sure to visit the hatchery. This is a great place to bring the kids or the big kids, because I enjoy going and looking at these monstrous trout that they've got swimming in this tank. Like, I could only dream of catching a fish that big. I mean, look at these guys. They're monsters. But these are their breeders. And then, of course, you can see the smaller ones that are getting fattened up and getting ready to release into the river. It's really neat. And then as soon as you drive out of the camp, you'll have access to the lookout tower where you can look out over Greer's Ferry Lake and see the Little Red River. And I have seen quite a few large trout in the river right down there. If you know, you know. If you don't, well, sucks to be you. It's okay to be jealous. Oh my God, that's so good.